Greetings, Patriots. In this lesson, our content objective is to kind of explore what will happen to an inequality symbol when you multiply or divide by a specific integer, okay? Or when you add and subtract. We want to look at some patterns. So we have the inequality that's been given to us that says 4, right, is less than 16. So if I think about that, I want us to keep that same inequality, and we are going to be looking to see that when I add or subtract or multiply or divide something, what happens to that. So let's look at the first one. Let's add 5 to both sides of this inequality. So if I add 5 here, all right, 4 plus 5 is going to give me 9. And if I add 5 to 16, that's going to be 21. Well, let's ask ourselves, is 9 less than 21? Well, I think we can all agree that that's a true statement. Okay, now we need to add negative 4 to both sides. So if I do a 4 and add a negative 4, I know that's going to give me 0. Remember our 0 pairs? And 16 minus 4 is going to give me 12. Well, is 0 less than 12? Yes, it is. Now I'm going to add 0 to both sides. Well, when I add 0 to both sides, nothing changes, so 4 is still less than 16. So that's true. If I subtract 5 from both sides, so 4 minus 5 is a negative 1. Don't forget your 0 pairs. And 16 minus 5 is 11. Is negative 1 less than 11? Well, I have to say that is true. If I subtract 4 from both sides, well, 4 minus 4 again is 0, and is 0 less than 12? I'm going to say that is true. So the question that we're asking is, did the operations of addition or did the operations of adding or subtracting create a false inequality? Well, I'm going to say no. The operations of adding or subtracting did not create a false inequality. So no, they didn't. Every single one of them was true. So to answer that question, we would say no. All right, now take a look at dividing and multiplying by different values. Okay, we're going to stick to the same inequality, and we want to see if we get true or false statements. So now we're going to divide both sides by 4. Well, I take 4 divided by 4. I know that gives me 1. And 16 divided by 4 is 4. So is 1 less than 4? True. Now I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. Well, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and that is less than 16 divided by 2, which is 8. So I'm going to say we're still dealing with some true inequalities. So now I'm going to divide both sides of the inequality by a negative 4. Oh, don't forget your triangle when it comes to positive and negatives, right? When we're dividing and multiplying. So 4 divided by a negative 4, well, that's going to give me a negative 1. And 16 divided by a negative 4, well, that's going to give me a negative 4. Well, is negative 1 less than 4? Let me go back and remember my number line. If I have 0 here on the number line, as I move to the left of the number line, I know that my values become less in value. So the comparison that I'm making is negative 1 and negative 4. Well, I know that negative 1 must be actually greater than negative 4. So this is a false inequality. Okay, because negative 1 is closer to 0. Now we need to divide both sides by the inequality of negative 2. Well, 4 divided by a negative 2 is a negative 2. And 16 divided by a negative 2 is a negative 8. So once again, let's look at our number line. Here's 0, here's negative 1, negative 2. I know that negative 8 is going to be farther from 0. So if I'm comparing negative 2 to negative 8, once again, on my number line, this lets me know that negative 2 is not less than negative 8. It's actually greater. Okay, so those are false. Interesting. Multiply both sides of the inequality by 3. So 4 times 3 is 12. 16 times 3 is 48. Well, is 12 less than 48? I'm going to say that's true. Multiply both sides of the inequality by 2. So 4 times 2 is 8, and 16 times 2 is 32. Is 8 less than 32? I'm going to say that is true. All right, moving on. Multiply by both sides of the inequality by negative 3. Don't forget your triangle. So 4 times a negative 3 gives me a negative 12. 16 times a negative 3 gives me a negative 48. Once again, think about your number line. Here's 0. Negative 12 is much closer to 0 than negative 48. So I'm going to say, again, this gives me a false inequality. Negative 12 is greater than negative 48. Now we're multiplying both sides by negative 2, and that gives me a negative 8. 16 times negative 2 is a negative 32. And once again, if I think of those numbers on a number line, negative 8 is much closer to 0 than negative 32. So once again, negative 8 is greater than negative 32. That makes this false. So it's interesting. I need you guys to go observe the patterns that you're seeing. What type of numbers or what operations are making us have false statements? You guys have the following. I want you guys to think about everything that created a false inequality. Which operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, gave false inequalities? What did you observe? Did this operation always create a false inequality? And if not, what did you notice about the numbers that were included with these operations? How could you rewrite the inequalities to make them true? So what have we discovered? We will reflect and discuss these the first 15 minutes of class tomorrow, so please make sure that you are available and ready to discuss the following. Have a great day, Patriots.